Where did I go? Welcome. Hi, Geraldine. Good evening. Celia, are you on the Facebook, right? I can't seem to get
Yes.
on. So, okay, so you can monitor the Facebook though?
Yep.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Mohammed, welcome. Good to see you. Good to see you. Scarlett, you had shared it?
I did share it.
Okay, I'll share.
Yeah, I shared it on my personal and business page. Now, whether it was successful is a different story.
Mm.
Because, okay, yeah, I did share it.
Where's your music, Celie?
Ooh. I guess that's a no.
I'm like wondering if he can hear it because remember he's been having difficulties.
What did you say?
The music. Usually have music playing.
Oh, I was playing it this whole time, but I probably didn't hit the button to share my audio. Well, hmm.
Love
I enjoyed that song.
I'm glad you did.
Yes.
I have something to play next time, but another issue to fix. But we're learning. But hey, everyone, and welcome to our part 5 inner wellness sharing, running away and why someone feels like running away. We are sharing these video series on our King County page, and we'll share it on our Facebook Live, which we're living now. And then I'll re-embed it too for those folks who came in to share with your friends. With that, let me just some overviews and requests to mute your mic when you are not speaking. Be mindful of your background noise and distraction as much as possible. And then we will be monitoring both the Zoom chat and the Facebook chat for questions. But with that, I'm going to stop sharing and pass it over to our therapist.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Celie. Welcome, everyone. So good to be in this space again. Welcome to, is it our fifth part? Wow. We're more than halfway there. More than halfway there in our inner wellness series. But welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm just going to start by introducing myself. My name is Sala Afalava. I am a licensed mental health therapist here in the state of Washington. I currently work out of my own private practice. I see clients that way. And then I'm also attending school to be a psychologist. And then other than that, I'm going to, before I turn the floor over to my colleague, my amazing colleague, Scarlett, to start off this series, just a little bit about tonight's class, which is we're kind of focusing on running away, right? And this is, of course, like these are our teens. The reason why Scarlett and I kind of landed on this topic is because this is something that we've noticed as mental health providers in our communities. Like, we've noticed that there's been such an increase in a lot of our teens, a lot of our young people that are running away. So we thought that this would be kind of like a good space to be able to hopefully come together. Not only this can be a space for our teens, but also for our parents, right? So
Mhm.
even if, you've never had a teen that ran away, but maybe just kind of interested, in kind of hearing what we have to say, or just be engaged in a conversation about it, tonight's for you. Or even if you know a teenager or know a family even that have experienced runaway teens, right? So this would be great information for them. You can more than welcome to kind of share the information. Hopefully we get to rerun our series again and it'll come back around. But really for tonight, our focus is in sort of talking about how can we address this? Why is it that our teens, why is it that our young people are running away?
Mhm.
But not only just, from the teenager's perspective, but also from the parents' perspective, right? How can we then maybe hopefully have a conversation on how can these two parts of the family, pieces of the puzzle come together to be able to heal that family unit, right? Because there's
Right.
things, I guarantee there's things going on in that dynamic. So a lot of the times, there's also a lot of stigmas attached to that. So, anyways, like just before I, just kind of go on and on about, our topic for tonight, just know that the first half of this, Scarlett is going to be talking and addressing this from the teenager's perspective. What that looks like, for teens, what are possibly some of the reasons the teens are kind of experiencing this, and why they're running away. And then the second half of this, I will be sort of discussing it from the parent's perspective. And that's how we'll be able to sort of navigate through tonight's class. So, without any further ado, I'm going to let her introduce her amazing self, my amazing
Absolutely.
colleague Scarlett. Take it away for part
Thank
one.
you. Thank you, Sal. I greatly appreciate it. And so, my name is Scarlett. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and boundaries coach. I've been in this field for over a decade. Currently, I am in private practice as well. I am not in school. Amen. So, there's that. I was like, go, Sala, go. um, but just to continue to add on to what Sala was saying, like there's a couple of things that we've talked about before. Part of what Sala and I want to bring to the forefront is having discussions that are not typically talked about in public. It's always talked about in private. And so, especially with Pacific Islanders, people of color, these topics that people are just really afraid to touch on. And we want to be able to give you all the tools to have these conversations if you still want to keep it within your circle, and just not and have it move in a direction that's in a healthier way, rather than kind of just continuing the same circle over and over again. And then the other part why we decided to do the two part, the teens slash youth and parents, is because we really wanted to, hopefully this presentation bridges the conversation gap between them, and whether it's and it maybe it not be the parents, but whoever the support system is for the teen or the youth. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. And also, again, please, if you have your questions, if you want to um, interject and say anything, you have all have permission to do so. Because, like I said, we really wanted to engage, have this be a true community conversation. And so, Celie, if anything pops up in the Facebook chat, please let us know. And then Sala for our Zoom chat as well. So cool beans. Let's go.
And as you're getting that up and going, Scarlett, I was also thinking, because I know like a lot of the times too, we have our case managers attend our all of our classes. So also a sort of a good information to be able to, because if we're not seeing these clients that are like whether it's the parents or the teen, if we're not seeing, more than likely you're the first person that's working with your clients, and maybe that family is experiencing this. And so hopefully tonight will be helpful for our case managers to be able to provide some or shed some light on it, on some of the things that they can do, in sort of, helping families navigate that too.
Exactly, especially from the cultural perspective that we'll bring as well. So I'm solid. Can you see my screen? Are we good? Okay, awesome. All right. So running away, a two-part discussion again is presented by Sala and I. And so part of what we're going to do, part one, this is the part I have, is just do some quick stats, just kind of run over it real quickly, exploring the reasons why someone runs away. Now, I will be upfront, like some of the topics that we explore will be sensitive. And so if you feel like you're unable to handle it, please feel free to either um, uh, discontinue watching the presentation, because that's the thing and part about what Sal and I are talking about. We actually go there because we want to have these open conversations, so that it doesn't keep getting kind of pushed under the rug or blocked away in the closet. The other part I'm going to talk to, what we talked about in one of the presentations we did earlier, is the why truly feelings are important to share, because that's what's missing a lot of times in conversations. And we're going to watch a little short video about the importance of being heard, and then we'll get into Salah's part. So with the quick stats. So these are actually stats from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And I thought that was really interesting to see that literally 1.6 to 2.8 million youth, a youth is defined at that point between 10 to 24. And so, which I thought was interesting, was like 1.6 to 2.8 million kids run away per year. And it's
Same.
yeah, the unfortunate part is there wasn't a lot of statistics when it came to Pacific Islander kids. And so because a lot of times I feel what happens is it goes under either goes underreported, and they just don't know where to put the statistics in that case. And so 90% of the kids who run away are considered endangered runaways. So endangered runaway is defined as believed it's like a high risk. And so somebody who can do um I'm losing my thoughts. I'll get back to you on that. So with that being said, females make up about 75% of the runaways. A lot of the times, 80% of them are saying they are running away because of either sexual or physical abuse. And so in 34% of the 80% who is reporting that it has been sexually abused, 43% has been physically abused before leaving the home. It's I think what's interesting about that statistic is like, I wonder, as I was reading the statistics, I'm like, I wonder where are the male statistics about males running away, and why that wasn't really reported in this report that I was reading about them. If anybody has, and Solid, you want to add anything to that? And if anybody has any questions about these stats, please let me know. Are you good?
Yep, we're good. Just
Okay.
it's a staggering, numbers, and
Yeah.
especially like when you're considering youth, right? And you said
Mhm.
the defined age for youth or the teens that's defined in this stat is from the ages of 10. Like
Mhm.
that is, can't even wrap my mind around that. 10 years old.
Yeah, I think a
So,
lot of times, even when I see like, because I will see on social media more than anything about Pacific Islander kids running away, and it's
mm-hmm.
not because it was reported to the police. You know how police puts out official report and say, "Have you seen this kid, seen this person?" And I always find that this is why I'm saying, like, I feel like for our group, it definitely goes underreported quite a bit because of so many things, that so many factors that can play a role. I think part of what Sala and you and I have talked about and we've talked about in previous presentations before, about the shame around that. So I thought that was really interesting. So um, here's some other factors that may be affecting, why the youth runs away. Homelessness. Homelessness is actually in the state of Washington is actually a really, really big challenge. I think definitely in community conversations we have, we always talk about food and housing insecurities. that play a role in this. And another part is a lot of us grew up in multi-generational households, so there may be an increased responsibility, which sometimes can come off as too much pressure, possibly for the teen or the youth. Because again, going back to thinking about a 10-year-old running away, and I'm like, oof, like how severe it has to be in order for them to say, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna leave. The other part I put is divorce and family separations. A lot of times, I know a lot of times with Pacific Islander kids, I don't know if you know about this, Sala, but a lot of times the younger kids are sent off away from families, their own families.
Mhm.
I know various family members of mine who their parents were still living in American Samoa and would send all of my cousins here to the States, to go to school or live with another family member. So
Yeah.
that's what I mean by that. And also divorce. Another thing is there could be language barriers in the household, especially in a multi-generational household. And the biggest thing for us, for Sal and I, that a lot of times there's a lot of undiagnosed mental health conditions. And it can be, and it's a wide range that goes from depression to anxiety to stress. And when I think about undiagnosed, I also think about all the pressures that kids experience. Especially now, you have social, you have cultural, you have home, and especially if they're teenagers who are working, it's all of that that's encompassing. That could be a possible reason why kids, if they do decide to run away. So, Sala, anything you wanted to add to that?
Just that when you mentioned about like the I think multi-generational households, and usually culturally it's kids are being sent to other family members, but it's so interesting because growing up in Samoa, it's they're being sent to their family members in another village,
Yeah.
and or here's what we do get a lot is we get a lot of like the family members that are here in the States and their kids act up. So then
Mhm.
they, as a punishment, they sent the kids to Samoa to
Mhm.
be disciplined, you
Mhm.
know. So that just reminded me of that when you were talking about that. But yeah, it was common. I remember seeing that a lot, in being able to. Ugh, wow, yeah, that brought back memories.
Before I move
I
forward,
too may have experienced that. I may or
yeah.
may not have.
Well, I think that's the thing is like, really considering we want to include in this conversation all the factors that may be
Hmm.
impacting not just the team, but also the family, because a lot of times, we, especially for, I know personally of people when family members were sent where they didn't have a good experience when they were sent off to live with another family member. So there's so many factors that play into possibly why a teen or youth runs away. And so we just definitely want to consider bring up those things and consider all those things. So does anybody have any questions or any comments before we move forward? Don't all race at one time. If not, that's good.
All right, we over here asking lots of questions ourselves.
So let's explore some more reasons. So it's our engagement question is, what are some of the reasons you feel a teen may run away? And then we'll go into what statistics and what has actually been reported.
I can go first.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe some of the reasons why teens run away. I always just like I'm picturing myself as a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, and the points in my teenage life where I had the desire, the urge to run away.
Yeah.
It was usually because I was like mad at my parents because they didn't do something that I wanted.
Uh-huh.
So that's something that I'm thinking of. It's like as a young person, it's like really wanting to do something,
Mm-hmm.
but then I never got the approval from maybe my parents to do that thing. So
Mm-hmm.
then this is me being angry and being wanting to be rebellious or something. So I would consider that. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. I would say probably for me, there was a lot of pressure, to do stuff because I was second oldest but first girl. And so it's always that first girl who has like a lot of responsibility. And so I was to the point, I'm like, you know what? I actually don't want to do this. I'm like, why do I
Mhm.
have to do this? And there was, and that was the thing. At those times in my life, it felt like it was unequal. Like I had to do more than anybody else, and some of it was I felt was unfair, but it was part of as a grown up. Now it's like, okay, I see why I had responsibility. At the time as a teen, I'm just like, God, this is so much. And I think what would have been, what I always say would have been helpful, if somebody would have explained the reason I had to
Mhm.
do it. It was just like, just do it. Don't say anything
Yeah.
else. I'm like, and of course, if I asked why, they,
Why?
yeah,
Because
yeah, because I
because I
said
said
so.
so.
And that's
That's
and
so
that's the
true.
thing. And it doesn't, and that's the thing, it never answers the question at that time. And so,
Mhm.
as a parent now, when my child asks me why, and I'm just like, and if I don't have the answer, I literally will say, I'm like, let me get back to you. I was like, I can't in the midst of this answer your question why. And so I think those would have been some of the reasons I would have ran away, because I just felt like a lot of pressure, because it was also athletics and academically as well. And I'm just like, because athletically, I was a team captain my freshman year on the varsity. There was a lot of pressure that came with that. So it was that school academically, always wanting to perform well. Because God forbid if I got a C,
Mm.
it's the end of
Mhm.
the world. I'm like, okay. So with that, does anybody else want to share? Or you don't have to unmute yourself, or you can put it in the chat if you want to as well. Again, so the question is, what are some of the reasons you feel, or why a teen would run away? Going once, going twice. Okay. So with that being said, we're just gonna go ahead and
I
move
think
forward.
Celie unmuted.
Woohoo! Go ahead,
No,
Celie.
I was just gonna add something. Just yeah, I don't. As a high school football coach at Rainier Beach for those years, and then having kids of my own,
Mm,
I don't like a lot of the kids that I worked with didn't run away. It was just their circumstances where they were just homeless, um, or they didn't have
mhm,
Mhm.
shelter. But I mean, I'm thinking it's just most folks may not like receive the love that they need, right, from their
Mhm.
parents or their guardians.
mhm,
Um, but that's just an interesting question from a different perspective,
mhm,
especially working with I don't know, more kids of privileges. But Amy, looking at the stats that you had shown us initially,
mhm,
um, it's alarming
mhm,
Mhm.
because it's one of those things. I used to work for City of Seattle's homeless team or navigation team is what they called us, but very
mhm,
rarely will you find like a homeless Samoan or a homeless Samoan youth unless you
mhm,
stole too many toasters, right? It was just when you broke those boundaries to the fact like, man, we can't have this kid no more. Um,
yeah,
I feel like especially our Pacific Islander group, I mean, we have such a wraparound care for our young people that it's interesting statistic or reasons to find folks running away because thinking
yeah,
about
Mhm.
like my nephews and them, they would run away to my house. I'm like, bro, I got to tell your parents you're here.
mhm.
They're gonna find out.
They're
Oh
gonna be
yeah.
like, hey man, you see my kids? Oh yeah, they here. Come on and get them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and even
Mhm.
even on that, Celie, I always find it interesting when kids decide to do that. It's just like, what's going on in the household so they feel they have to do that. And I'm glad they chose you, because they could have chose something else. So I'm glad you're that safe haven for them. Because so my definition when I think of runaway is when somebody's not living with their parent of origin, their or their original support system.
Hmm.
So go ahead, Celia. I saw you unmuted.
Oh no, I was just in agreement. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And so here are some of the reasons that were reported why some teams do run away. So a lot of it was unsafe environment. So that was the key theme around that. So there was a lot of abuse, physical, mental, emotional, a lot of stress and conflict with their parents that caused either a mental or emotional challenges, unsafe neighborhoods, so high crime areas, a lot of drug use. And again, as we said earlier, a lot of pressure, pressure, whether it was coming from home, culture, school, friends, social, especially right now with there's a lot of I think it's very interesting nowadays with the what youth and teens have to deal with in regards to social media, because social media is a highly big influence for our teens. I think the fact that it's gotten to the point where they're talking about banning a specific, platform because of the influence of it, because of what's happened, and a lot of times I think teens use that avenue to express what's going on within them, and it's sometimes they don't get the greatest advice, but there's a lot of pressure again when it comes to um, teens and youth, and it's the same with parents too, because like I said, we'll be talking about the parent perspective, which Sala will be doing on our part two. So um, I always think stress and conflict is a really big one, especially, and we're not talking about stress and conflict just if it happens once. We're talking about a repetitive stress and conflict um where there really is no solution, because a lot of times we always are focused on, a lot of times there's not enough focus on the solution when it comes to a disagreement. Like a lot of times we just stay on the conflict side of things. And um so part of, like I said, part of why, that's the reason why we're going to talk about the importance to share about what actually, for teens and for parents, why it's important to share what's going on. So Sala, anything you wanted to add to that?
No, just a curious question that came up as we were kind of going through this. Is I was just wondering, maybe we can ask it next time, is like, whoever's kind of in attendance,
Mm-hmm.
wondering if they've ever had, when they were teenagers, if they've ever had any thoughts of running away.
Mm-hmm. If anybody
It's just
wants
a
to.
curious, yeah, I know, right? I was like, do you ever have a thought about, when you were, like, if you were able to take yourself back to when you were a teen, and was there
Mm-hmm.
ever a point when, maybe, you felt like things were just too much,
Mm-hmm.
to where you felt like, that was the only option? So that was just something I was curious about and thinking about, as you were going through that.
No, it's a good question. I think I think it's a good question to ask, because it helps us reflect on our own stuff, and with that reflection, it'll help like the parents think about like what their
Mm-hmm.
kids went through. So it's a
Yep.
good reflection question for sure. So moving on. So again, feelings, again, they're so important. I attached so earlier. I can't, and I say this because this conversation is very, very important to me, because I'm every single client who I've seen, I've been in, like I said, in this field for over a decade. And the very first thing we talk about is how to talk about feelings, because they weren't taught how to talk about it. And it's so important. And like I said, emotional intelligence is really stopped being taught after kindergarten. So after 5 years old. So after 5, you're kind of just left to your own devices to figure it out. But if we're actually taught to think about, actually sit in with what's going on, whether it's good or whether it's bad, and actually learn how to express different type of emotions. And like when we talked about our know your feelings, we talked about the layer of feelings, that it is always important to identify the root feeling so it doesn't build up to the surface, because a lot of times the feeling that we show is the surface feeling. And so if we kind of just peel back and go like, okay, what else am I, if I wasn't allowed, and I always use anger as an example, if I weren't allowed to feel angry, what's underneath that? And a lot of times for me, you'll find like feeling dismissed or feeling frustrated. So it's addressing the frustration initially rather than letting it build up. So I always feel it's important to talk about feelings, because it especially in our PI communities, it's kind of frowned upon sometimes. And so even when I remember Celie was saying about his nephew saying, like, get this colonizer worksheet out of my face, with the feelings wheel. But that's the thing. And it's important to teach the youth and teach teens and the parents of why
And the
we,
parents, yes. I was
yeah,
about to say,
why,
it's like, yes,
yeah,
and the parents.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So I mean, because like I said, so knowing how, because like I said, so it's one of those things, like the important of addressing is we want to we is because a lot of times teens will escape versus addressing. We want to, the importance of saying your feelings is so that we can address. A lot of times we are silent about what's going on, and a lot of times and we've heard it a lot before, especially in our Pacific Islander community, like we suffer in silence a lot. And if you suffer in silence, think about how much your teen is suffering, or your teen or youth is suffering in silence. And so that's why we always want to talk about, tell me what's going on, tell me what you're feeling. And so, because that, it makes it such a huge difference. So when I see my clients, and when I used to work with kids and teens, and when they were able to express what is actually going on, it was a huge relief for them. So like I said, talking about your feelings reduces the intensity of them, and it has been proven to be relieving. And so again, it goes back to what I talked about in a previous presentations. It's like, the more and more you stuff it in the closet, the more and more that door's not going to close. And one day it's just not going to close anymore. And everything just kind of just comes out. And so I see that, especially when I see somebody who gets into a place of rage very quickly. And it's just like, oh, what didn't they address? So Solid, did you want to say something before I move?
Nope, just that the feelings again, really important. They really are. I
Mm-hmm.
think you covered everything that needs to be said about, like, we really can't reiterate it enough. And also
Yeah.
why we have a part of our series class here is know your feelings, because that's like a key component, very, very
Mm-hmm.
important to sort of base that off of with all of our classes.
Yeah. Like what Celie was saying, it is a foreign concept. And so that's why Sal and I will continue to emphasize this over and over and over again, because the more you hear it, the more you become comfortable with it. And so that's why we will continue to repeat these conversations. So another reason why it's important to share your feelings, it truly helps you understand you. It helps others understand you better too. So what I've said before is, it's like, it's important to share your feeling and the reason for the feeling. And so if because for example, if I just said I'm mad, and people are like, well, why? And it's just like, well, I don't know why. And it's like, okay, let's sit with that for a little bit. Tell me what's going on. And so a lot of times it'll teach people again how to treat you. So if something, especially if their behavior was offensive to you, you could talk about, okay, hey, when you did this, it actually made me feel frustrated. So what I want to ask is, if you please don't do that again. It's a simple request, but it's actually hard to put the words to. It takes practice. Again, that's why we continue to have these kind of conversations. The other part of sharing your feelings is, it recognizes that you're not alone. You're not alone. And if you don't disappear, they don't disappear if you don't talk about them. A lot of times, what I talk about with my teens, especially when they share their feelings, I always say to them, I always recommend to them, share it with somebody, share your feelings with somebody who can actually help you and is wise, not with your peer. Because you guys
Mhm.
just know the same things. So,
Yeah.
because when I work with teens at Lakes High School, I always talk with them, and I was like, I understand you want to talk to your friends and guests, please share with them, please don't stop. But when it comes to, if you want like how to move forward, speak to somebody who actually can help you move forward in that direction, not somebody who's going to make probably the same decision as you. And so they're like, oh, that makes sense, Miss Scarlett. I'm like, yeah, yeah. And so again, it's very, very vital, very imperative that we continue to teach about the importance of sharing your feelings. And so this, before I go forward, Sala, anything you wanted to add to that, or anybody else?
Again, just I remember like my experience in working with young kids too. Usually with like younger kids, like we're talking about 8, 9, maybe
Mhm,
7 even, where they don't really have like maybe the full vocabularies to
mhm,
say how they're feeling inside. So one of the biggest tasks, that or like usually when these kids are sitting across from us, it's because some behavioral thing is going on and the parent is getting frustrated because they can't figure out, why the kid is acting up, right? And one of the really basic main things that we do as therapists is being able to teach the kid, teach this young person, give them vocabularies to
Mm-hmm.
explain or to share what it is they're feeling. Because what's going on is they are experiencing really, really big emotions.
Mm-hmm.
They're experiencing really, really big feelings. But the thing is, they don't know how to say it. They don't know how to put it into words yet to where your, mom and dad will understand right away. Now,
Mm-hmm.
some families are fortunate where they, teach their kids from the get-go, like, oh, this is what it looks like when you feel sad, and this is what you do when you feel sad, and they normalize that really, really much. But when we're looking at this from a cultural perspective, how many of us can say that, you know, we had that support and education at home from our
Mm-hmm.
parents, right? Like a lot of us like don't have that, right? So then you have a lot of these PI kids, PI youth that are going through a lot of things, and it's even more so
Mm-hmm.
when you have, different generations in your home, or your parents is like, different generation. There's a language barrier there, right? Because then maybe it's a first generation, they immigrate over here, and then now the kid grows up in the States, and they don't really know how to speak your native language, but the parents only speak the native language with a little bit of English, and now they're trying to, figure out how to communicate, and the kid doesn't. So there's like a lot of those things that are going on.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like just going back into why it is so important to really be able to teach our kids, teach our young people how to, one, identify how they feel, and
Mm-hmm.
then how can we express those feelings in a constructive way to where we can, effectively communicate that to our parents. Like when we get mad, like my first go to is not to run away, but how can I communicate that effectively to my parents, right? And then for the parents, on the other hand, to be able to, like, how can you be on the receiving end of that and be able to provide that support for your kids? So, like we said, all of it just ties into, why our feelings are important, why we need to identify it, why we need to learn it, and again, the basics.
Mm-hmm.
So I just
So
want to add that.
thanks for adding that, Sala. So in the chat there, again, I posted in the Zoom chat the feelings wheel and the event cheat sheet for you all to have. And so um, big thing is please share, like I said, please share the feelings wheel with whoever you feel it would be benefit. I say everybody. So with that being said, I'm going to play this video on the importance of being heard, and again, why we need to feel heard. Hopefully it works.
One of our deepest longings, deeper than we even perhaps recognize day to day, is that other people should acknowledge certain of our feelings. We want that at key moments, our sufferings should be understood, our anxieties noticed, and our sadness lent legitimacy. We don't want others necessarily to agree with all our feelings, but what we crave is that they at least validate them. When we are furious, we want another person to say, I can see that you've been driven to distraction. It must feel very chaotic for you inside right now. When we're sad, we want someone to say, I know you're unusually down, and I understand the reasons why. And when we can't take it all anymore, we want someone gently to utter, it's been too much for you, hasn't it? I recognize that so well. Of course it has. It all sounds desperately simple, and in a way it is. And yet how little of this emotional nectar of acknowledgement we ever in fact receive or gift to one another. The habit of not having one's feelings properly acknowledged begins in childhood. Parents, even the most loving ones, frequently stumble in this domain. It's not that they don't theoretically care intensely for their children. It's that they don't appreciate that true care involves regularly reflecting a child's moods back to him or her. rather than subtly pushing the moods away or denying that they exist. Here are some typical unacknowledging parent-child exchanges. I'm feeling sad. Don't be silly, you can't be. It's the holidays. I'm really worried. Darling, now that's ridiculous. There's just nothing to be scared of here. I wish there wasn't any school, ever, ever. Don't be so silly. You know we have to leave the house by 8 o'clock in the morning. How different things might go, and what a different sort of adult the child would have a chance to grow into. If such dialogues were only slightly tweaked, if, for example, the parent could say, "It's weird, isn't it, how it's possible to be sad at the oddest of times, even on a lovely beach holiday?" Or, "I can see you're scared. That wind really is fierce out there." Or, "It must be really horrible having double maths all morning, especially after such a nice weekend." There is one big reason why we don't acknowledge as we might: fear. The feelings we push away are all, in some shape or other, emotionally inconvenient or troubling or upsetting. We love our child so much, we don't want to imagine that they might be sad or worried, lost, or having a terribly difficult time at school. Furthermore, we may operate with a background view that acknowledging a difficult feeling will make it far worse than it actually is. It will mean fostering it unduly or giving way to it entirely. We fear that if we give a bit of unbiased mirroring to our child, we might be encouraging them to grow cataclysmically depressive, unfeasibly timid, or manically resistant to authority. What we're missing is that most of us, once we've been heard, become far less rather than far more inclined to insist on the feelings we're beset by. The angry person gets less rather than more enraged once the depth of their frustration has been recognized. The rebellious child grows more, not less inclined to buckle down and do their homework once their feelings that they want to burn the school down, break the headmaster's glasses, and abscond to a desert island have been listened to and identified with for maybe no more than 55 seconds. Feelings get less strong, not more tyrannous, as soon as they've been given an airing. We become bullies when no one's listened, never because they've listened too much. The problem of unacknowledged feelings doesn't sadly end with childhood. Couples routinely put each other through the same mill. For example, "Sometimes I feel that you don't listen. That has to be rubbish. I put so much work into this relationship. I'm worried I might be fired. It's not possible. You worked so hard." All the way to the divorce courts or an affair. The good news is that an enormous uplift in mood is available right now with very little effort. If we simply learn.
Oh, sorry. I don't know what happened.
Work into this relationship. I'm worried I might be fired. That's not possible. You worked so hard. All the way to the divorce courts or an affair. The good news is that an enormous uplift in mood is available right now with very little effort. If we simply learn to change the way we typically respond to the I statements of those who matter to us. We only need to play their feelings back to them, even the potentially awkward feelings, for a few moments using certain magical phrases. "I can hear that you must be feeling so." I can understand completely that. Such phrases can change the course of lives. Crucially, we don't need to be listened to by everyone. We can bear an awful lot of unacknowledged feelings when just a few people, some of them in our childhood, and ideally one of them now in our bedroom and another in our friendship circle, every now and then plays us back to us. The ranter, the person animated by a rigid desire that everyone should listen to them, hasn't, of course, been overindulged. They're just playing out the frightening consequences of never having been heard when it mattered. There is almost no end to what we may be ready to do for those who pay us that immense, psychologically redemptive honor of once in a while acknowledging what we're actually feeling, however momentarily odd, melancholy, or inconvenient it might be.
Our emotional first aid.
All right. So I always enjoy this video because it pretty much summarizes what we always talk about in regards to feelings. What I always love about this feeler is when it says there's nothing, there's no such thing as too much listening, and so I even love when they even give the example of like the someone who is like extremely angry, that they actually their anger is reduced when the depth of their frustration is addressed. And so that's what I'm saying. Those are those layers of feelings, those root feelings that I always will say, because it's the initial root feeling that's not addressed to why we end up, with a highly negative feeling that gets expressed. And so, before we move forward, does anybody have any comments, any questions before we move forward to part 2?
I liked what it said about just the more our feelings like they get less strong
Mhm.
um when they get an airing. And it was showing like, the cloth,
Yeah.
like this angry, looking clothing, piece of clothing that's on hanging on the wire, and it's like the more it gets an airing, right? So that means like airing is like just letting it out, letting it out, letting it out. The less it becomes, super strong. So I really like that example. It's good.
For sure. And that's part of why we're talking about, because of course the importance of talking about this is to address possibly some of the reasons why teens and youth may be running away. A lot of times I know when I did see teens and youth, it is because they didn't feel like they had a voice in their household. And
Mhm.
so a lot of times not having a voice, and it's really teaching, a lot of times when I end up meeting with parents, it's teaching them like the difference of, and particularly what I've taught them, like what's the difference between actual, let's redefine what respect is and disrespect is. And so a lot of times sharing your feelings can be viewed as disrespectful, when it's just like they're actually just sharing what's
Right.
going on inside of them.
Yes.
And so a lot of times, especially with the Pacific Islanders I've worked with, we did a really redefining about what actually respect and disrespect looks like, especially when a teen is talking, or a teen or youth is talking about what is actually their feeling is what's going on. Because it has nothing to do, and particularly with the parent, a lot of the times, it's just like they
Mhm.
just want to express what's going on. So that being said, I'm gonna shoot it over to my homie, my ace, Sala, so we can talk about the parent side of this stuff. So Sala,
Yes.
go ahead, take it away, and just let me know when you want me to click to.
Got you. Yeah, so we are at part 2 of tonight's agenda. Scarlett was talking about, the teens and some of the information there. And this part is where we get to sort of provide some information, for parents on the other side of things. So on this part of the agenda, we're going to talk about the type of runaways, and then also some prevention. What are some ways that, we as parents can prevent our teens from, possibly running away or consider running away. And then what happens? What can we do as parents if our teenagers end up leaving? And then what happens when they get home, when they come back home? And then how can we, Scarlett and I will be addressing together, just being able to, how can we share again back to the feelings healthily, because this is really key for both ends, for not only the parents, but also the teens. So let's get going, Scarlett, next time. So if you are a parent, and you have a teenager, and a teenager, maybe, this is, you have had the experience of your teen running away, or your teen threatened to run away, or maybe someone in your family, or you have friends at church that's whose teenagers, ran away, or threatened to run away, or that kind of stuff. Like, really just wanna let you parents know that you are not alone. Like, you are not alone, especially like if you think about the statistics of like over 2 million youths run away from home, right? So it's like there's a lot of parents, that are also experiencing this. So just want to take some time to, acknowledge that, as parents, like, because this is a very critical time in a family unit, right? There's a lot that's going on. So because, and not only that, if we're looking at this from a cultural perspective, like if your son or daughter runs away, there's probably going to be a lot of stigmas that you're going to be, probably taking on. There's going to be, lots of feelings of shame, maybe even guilt, blame. Oh, how's the church people going to look at me? How are other, how's so and so gonna get? They're gonna think what's going on in our family, So there's gonna be a lot of those perceptions that's probably going on in your mind at that moment. For some parents, maybe this is where they feel very powerless because they've never experienced this in their lifetime, right? So it's not something that maybe they have even considered in their lifetime, right? So they've never experienced this before. So they feel powerless because they feel like they don't know how to help their teenager. So if you are that parent, if you're here or if you're watching this on the reruns or whatever, just want to let you know that you are not alone in this. So there's so much, and I know that as we're looking at this from a cultural perspective, there can be a lot of blame, like, oh my goodness, family members are going to think that we are bad parents, right? Because I don't know about the other cultures, but usually, in the Samoan culture, uh, I remember growing up and, whenever we do something bad, like parents are always, it's very common for parents to say, Oiro maku. They ask like, who are your parents? Who are your parents? Right? So then again, that implies that like whatever I do as a young person, it's going to be reflective on my parents. It's going to make my family look bad. So this is also what the parents could be experiencing, right? This is what they could be internally, thinking to themselves in at this moment. So just want to take the time to acknowledge that you're not alone, parents. There are a lot of parents that are going through this, and there is help. So hopefully tonight we'll be able to provide you with some information.
For
Next
sure.
slide. You see Celi's comments
What did he say?
and
You
get
ready for
ready for that. What
that?
did he say?
Get ready for that beat down or constructive
Oh my gosh,
discipline.
Celi, you gonna need this class.
Well, just to add on to what continue to emphasize what
Mhm,
Sala was saying with the parents is to continue to emphasize it does take a village. Does
mhm,
take a village. The village is not only just the people we know, it's these types of conversations that we're having to be a part of it, to open up these conversations. And that's a big reason why we want to have these conversations, is to take away the shame and the guilt that we have.
mhm,
Because like I said, there are literally 1 to 2.8 million families who are experiencing somebody running away, and they probably didn't expect it. So I just want to just say that. So
absolutely. So there's usually two types of runaways. There's episodic runaways and chronic runaways. So whenever teens run away from home, usually this is kind of how they're categorized as like if and so episodic runaway is this is when teenagers run away from home because something triggered it. So again, like maybe their parents you know ban them from going out with their friends or something, or their parents, or they didn't agree with their parents on something, or they asked their parents for something. It could be an event that just kind of like triggered them to like this is their go-to response is, oh, that's it, I'm gonna run away. So
mhm.
episodic runaway is when teenagers run away from home when a specific event triggers their desire to run away. Again, like we want to bring back the importance of being able to have our teenagers and our young people and even the parents to be able to learn like the importance of learning communication skills, like effective communication skills. But guess what? You know, we can't have those communication skills if we don't know how to identify our feelings, right? Because before I can communicate anything that I'm feeling to my parents, I'd have to identify what in the world it is that I'm feeling, right? So again, we're bringing back the importance of emotional intelligence and being able to like, how can we make this really a big deal for our young people? Because like, instead of, because when you think about like if I tell my son, no, you can't go to the movies with your friend, and maybe that triggers, you know, something in him to like, oh, okay, like, oh, like because he really wanted to go, and then he ends up running away because of that. That tells me that he is so upset to the point where he feels like he can't come and talk to me about it, or he's so upset that, and he's just bottled, he's got all of these, you know, he's going through all of this to the point where, you know, he's not able to come and have a conversation. So maybe either he doesn't know how to communicate to me about it, or maybe he feels like I'm not a safe person to talk to about it. But we'll get into that later on. So episodic runaways. So chronic runaways. So often these are mostly teens that like manipulates their parents or guardians by threatening them that they're going to run away. So everything's like, you know, they're using it as a threat. Usually they would run to like a sympathetic family member or a relative, and then another reason why teenagers are become chronic runaways is because maybe the system failed them, and they you know they keep going back to their homes, and maybe it's a dysfunctional home, and there's not a lot of maybe professional resources that are available to help this teenager, and they just keep putting them back. The system maybe just keeps putting them back in a home that is maybe not a safe one for them. So the teen just ends up running away, chronic runaways. However, for chronic runaways, research does show that the most common reasons why teens run away in a chronic way, where that means they do this all the time, is because of physical, sexual, emotional abuse that's occurring in the home. They're being bullied at school. They're having at least one authoritative parent in the home. Maybe there's addiction in the home, there's substance use in the home. Either the teen is using, or the parent is using, or there's poverty, right? There's not much, maybe food or something like that. So it's almost like it becomes like a survival. It becomes like this survival thing for the teens. But these are the most reasons why this chronic runaway, why teenagers run away in a chronic way. Any questions or comments or anything you want to add, Scarlett?
What's interesting about the chronic runaways, because like I said, when I used to work with teens, like they literally used to manipulate their parents to say, I'm gonna run away. And so it's a very thin line. So this is why we, like I said, we wanted to talk with the parents about that. And so, and it just wasn't the white kids. Let me say that. Because I always think, because sometimes we think it's just the white kids who say that. Most of the kids I've dealt with were kids of color, especially our PI kids. So they would use that as a manipulation to get their way. And so it was really, really talking with them about like, what are you actually needing? So I always thought that was interesting, especially with the chronic runaways.
Yeah.
That was it.
So how can we prevent our teens from running away? What are some things that we can do? You can show them all, Scarlett. Well, for one, we can, as parents, connect with your teenager. Connect with your teenager. Set up, just making sure that like your home is a place where your teen feel like they can be open, where your teenager feels like they can be honest about how they feel, and be able to talk to you about what they think. Because a lot of the time parents often criticize. They do a lot more of the, they either criticize their teen, they punish them, they don't let their teen maybe tell their side of the story, right? And if you think about some of our PI homes, it's to the point where it is authoritarian, right? Where it is what I say goes, right? My whatever the parents say, like that's what's happening, right? Like it's as kids, you're there, you're being you're seen and not heard. Right. So, and this is why a lot of times like teens, they just kind of end up taking off. It's because they feel like they can't talk to you as parents. They feel like it's not safe to be able to tell you how they feel about things or how they think about things. So just being able to, as a parent, being able to create an environment in your home where your teenager really feels safe and feels comfortable. And then also, like, as parents, just being able to, um, oh, here's a big one, being able to respect your child or your teenager's reason for, and I didn't say accept, I said respect their reason, whatever it is like, mom, I want to leave because of this. Respect their reason for wanting to leave home. And for some parents, that can be hard because it's like, what? Because if anything, the kids are the one that's supposed to respect me, you know? But we're not saying no, accept why they want, no, respect. That means just listen to what they're saying.
Mhm.
Like that is you respecting your child as well, your teen, is being able to give them that space to talk to you about what's going on in a very calm and in a logical way.
Mhm.
So whenever our teens are talking to us, making about running away, as a parent, just being able to, find a way to be able to like help them understand or just be curious as parents. Like, why are you feeling this way? What's going on? So how can you as a parent in that way, be able to connect with your teen in that moment? But you see, a lot of these things, it doesn't just happen overnight, right? It's not just like, oh, as soon as your teenager like starts threatening you, then it's like this happens. Like these things, like it can start right now where you are building that connection, building that relationship with your teen. If you don't already have it, like if you don't already have that connection with your teen, and you feel like your teen is a bit high risk, I would encourage you to start building that connection with your teen. And then also another ways is try reframing, whatever it is that your teenager's going through. So reframing is like a method and that we as therapists use. And how this method goes is like it changes how the client sees a problem. Like
Mhm.
whatever the problem the client is coming in with, we use this reframing technique where we're kind of helping the client, see their problem in a different perspective. We help them to see it from a different perspective. So really, it's reframing is sort of based on this idea that whenever the clients, or based on this idea that when clients can see a situation, clients or a team can see a situation from a different point of view, they're more likely to find maybe a different solution other than running away to their problem, right? So how can you find a way to sort of, help your teen reframe how they're thinking about whatever it is problem that they have going on that they're bringing to you, right? So try reframing your teen situation. Recognize when your teen is in trouble. Like nobody knows your kid better than you, hopefully.
Mhm.
Hopefully, nobody knows your kid better than you. So, what are some of the signs that are coming up that you're noticing, that are maybe out of the norms for your teen, right? Are they maybe moodier than usual? Are they, were they more social, but now you're noticing them just kind of, staying in their room all the time? Are they hanging out with a different group of friends? Are you noticing any drug use? Like, what are some things that are standing out to you that you're like, wait a minute, never really used to do that? Like, start picking up on those things, right?
Mhm.
Start picking up those things, start addressing it as they come up with your team. And then, if anything, seek professional help. If this is like your teenagers, if this is not your teenager's first time running away from home, and maybe you feel like as a parent you have exhausted all of your options, anything that you feel like you could possibly do to help your teen, you feel like, oh my gosh, I've tried everything that you possibly could, but you haven't tried maybe therapy or even a third party, whether that is you can seek spiritual counsel. A lot of people in our communities, like that's where they go to first. Like if you feel like you are comfortable with that, your teen is comfortable with like a third party intervention in that way. Whatever it is, it's important. Again, just going back to the values of your family dynamic, but
Mhm.
find the help, seek professional help. And then also parents, it's important for you to do self-care as well. You know, you're not going to get anywhere with your teen if their emotions are heightened, and you as a parent, like your capacity to deal with things, with whatever it is that, you know, your teen's got going on, you can't even deal with it because you are so maxed out. You don't have the capacity to be able to help your teenager, right? So it's so important that, like, as parents, to be able to make sure you're taking some time to yourself, making sure that that you're not getting, you know, burnt out, that making sure that you're doing a lot of the things to that adds value to you, a lot of things that refreshes you, either spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. So self-care can even mean therapy for you as a parent, right? Because maybe there's just so much going on, and you don't want to keep that to yourself, that you maybe you just need someone to talk to about everything that's going on with your team, and maybe get a different perspective for yourself. And that's also a form of self-care.
Absolutely. So some comments. So absolutely makes them feel a sense of belonging and love is at home, first support of the parents and the family. Someone else said, in children questioning or showing indifference to traditions we expect them to follow automatically is a sign of intelligence, not trouble. Love that.
Yeah,
Beautifully said. So
absolutely. Thank you. Yeah.
I think with just to continue to emphasize what Sala is saying is like, please exhaust all resources. There are so
Hmm.
many resources out there, especially some of them are free. Utilize them all. And so, like I said, Sala and I are a wealth of resources. Okay. And so is Celia as
Use
well.
us.
Please you, and that's what we're here for. We're here to be to be the channel of whatever we need to be for our
Hmm.
community. And so I think the thing continue to emphasize that it is very important for parents to take care of themselves because we
Yeah.
already have the pressure of taking care of a whole household. And a lot of
Hmm.
times parents don't take care of themselves. And so, like I said, a lot of times we are always at our capacity. And so when your child comes in with this high emotional, whatever it is, we don't have any more space for that. And so part of
Hmm.
like what Sal was saying, it is very, very important for you all to take care of yourselves. And so that's what I say to that.
So let's say you tried all of that, right? So let's say, you know, maybe you do have an amazing relationship with your teen and you don't notice any signs, and you think everything is going fine, and your teenager ends up leaving anyways. What are you going to do then? So immediately, when you notice that, like immediately call the police. Don't wait 24 hours. Some of the information that I found is being able to ask the investigator, the police investigator, to enter your teen in the National Crime Information Center. There's no waiting period if you're for under 18 years old. So 18 and under, there's no waiting period. You know how there's some where it's like, oh, you got to wait till like 48 hours or something like that. Like with the National Crime Information Center, there's no waiting period. So again, immediately, because sometimes, like I said, sometimes it's like for parents, it can just hit you and you're like, oh my, now what? You know, and keep in mind, now you're at the point where there's stigma, there's shame, there's perception of other people. What is the church people going to say? What kind of parent am I? This is going to be reflective on my parenting. So you have all of these things going on, but just remember, keep the focus on your family. Keep the focus on you and your team, parents and team. That is what matters, because those thoughts are going to start coming up for you. All of the, oh my gosh, like now what's going to happen? You know, worried about your team. Call the police immediately. Don't wait 24 hours. Ask them to enter your team's name into the NCIC database. Start calling everyone that your teenager knows, all of their friends, right? Because more than likely they know, somebody know. So contact their friends, ask them if they've seen, when's the last time they've seen them. Don't be afraid to go into your teenager's room and, you know, look for some clues. Check their social medias. If there's tracking on the phone, that's another thing you can do. And I know these seem like, oh my gosh, this is like just common sense, right? But sometimes when you're in the midst of it, it just can feel like what do I do? Right? So we really wanted to just provide like, hey, practical steps. This is what you can do, right? As a parent, because let's say everything is going well, you did everything that you tried, but your teenager still ran away. Now what? This is what you can do, right? So these are there's also a national runaway switchboard. The number is right there on the slide. So you can call and leave a message. Or so for some reason, like there's this article that I read that said teenagers will sometimes call this switchboard to be able to ask for help or for guidance, right? Because hey, the last thing, because maybe the situation at home is so bad that they don't want to call home. So, but they have this resource. So if you're a parent, this can be a place where you can call and leave a message for your teen, and they'll be able to, I don't know how they work that out, but your teen is able to kind of get that message. So again, we just wanted to leave some practical steps because this is the reality of it, right? Like we can say, it's like, okay, but what if this was like, let's just say your teenager ends up running away after you tried everything. Now, what are you going to do? These are some practical steps that for you to take as parents. Anything you want to add to that, Scarlett?
No, I think these are great steps because a lot of times what I only see is like, especially in our PI community, they post it on their personal page and they'll share it,
Yeah.
which is good. But I don't ever see any reports of like they were actually reported it to like the police and I think even using the NCIC is a great tool as well. Like I said, there's the fact because it's when something like this happens, there's really no thinking. There's just a high emotional,
Yeah.
like, oh my God, what's this? You just think about everything else besides these steps. So please share these, with whoever you feel just everybody. Cause like I say, these are good things to happen because no one ever thinks their kid is going to run away. Just no one does.
Absolutely. And so let's say, things kind of playing out the way it is and your teen ends up coming home. Now what? All y'all Samoan parents up there, don't get the belt out. Y'all better not get the belt out, okay? That is what not to do. So let's not no, like, so when your teenager comes home, one, make the time to decompress. That is important, not only for you as a parent, but for the kid as well. So when your kids come home after running away, take some time to welcome them, right? So welcome them, tell them how happy and relieved you are to see them again. But before you, as a parent, I know it's going to be hard to resist, but before you, as a parent, try to have that big talk and trying to figure things out, like what's going on, because I'm pretty sure as a parent you're going to have a lot of questions. Take some time to calm down. Everyone, parents and the teen, needs a little rest at that point, right? Because you all have just been through a lot. So instead, some of the things that you can try and do is try and make them feel better. You can make like their favorite meal, make your teenager's favorite meal or something, right? um, Give them like make sure that they're shower or all of that, make sure they get a good night's rest, things like that. And just to be able to make their transition, because at this point, like, I don't know how long your teenager's been gone. Maybe it's been a day, maybe it's been 2 days, maybe it's been 3 days, but a lot could have happened to them in those 2, 3 days. A lot has happened to you in those 2, 3 days, right? So this is a way that we're able to like transition everybody back, right? Not only for you as a parent, but for your teenager as well. How can we transition your teen back to your home where it's safe, hopefully, right? And then you as a parent, right? How can you also kind of take that time because you've also been through a lot, right? So it's important that you kind of give each other some space. I really recommend not talking about what happened immediately. Don't start asking, your teenager all these questions, because at that moment, like we said, like your feelings are too high, your emotions are too high. So for, a conversation to go anywhere, like it's not going to happen. So just at that moment, give yourself and your teenager some space, to be able to just rest. And then we go to the next one. When the time is right, this is where you get to ask the question and listen. So probably, I'm pretty sure if I was in the place of a parent whose teen ran away, I probably don't know why. Why did you leave? Right? Or what's going on? You know? So when you feel like the time is right, when the emotions are kind of down a bit, ask the questions that you want to ask and listen. Listen to what your teenager has to say. Ask and listen. Don't ask and then try to oh, but this, and try to, justify whatever. Just ask the questions and listen. Try not to get defensive. Try not to make excuses. Again, don't try to justify your actions. Just ask what it is that you want to ask your teenager, and just listen. Remember, as a parent in that moment, your goal is just to try and understand where your teen is coming from. What's the next one on the slide? Remind your teen that you love them.
So hold on.
Oh, tell your teen how you felt when they ran away. So yes, so make sure. So again, like this, it's kind of transitioning to all. We're not like as soon as they get back right in the door, you're asking them all of these things, right? I know you're taking some time, maybe like give it a couple of days before you actually get to sit down and have a conversation with your teen. And then it gets to the point where you get to tell your teen how them running away, how it made you feel, right? So again, we're bringing back the feelings, because how can you communicate to your teen how you feel if you don't know how to identify your feelings? So here we are bringing back the feelings wheel again, and the importance of emotional intelligence for us as parents as well. So making sure you take the time to tell your teen how you felt about them leaving, let them know maybe that they hurt you and that you were worried when they left. But at the same time, remind your teenager that you love them. Reaffirm them. Remind them that you know what, there's no problem in the world that you and I can't solve, right? And if they ever feel like running away again, is there something else that the both of you can work together, and sort of remember, you want to make sure maybe this doesn't happen again. So how can the both of you kind of come together, or come up with some choices of how to give your teen other options other than like running away? What is something that maybe, like, if you get so angry to the point where you feel like you can't talk to me, what's going to be our game plan? Right, so this is where you get to have that conversation. Again, remind your team that you love them. Reaffirm your team that you love them and you want them to be safe. Not the part where you're criticizing them, judging them, you're trying to give them a lecture. No lecture at that point. Remember, you're trying to repair the relationship. And then lastly, get some professional help. If like I said, if this wasn't the first time your teenager has run away, or I think that if this isn't the first time they've run away, this is something that like they've always done, then could you possibly be having some communication, maybe issues between you and your team, for you and your team, right? Is it time, like when is the time to kind of ask for help? Like if this keeps happening, and your go-to is just always like, okay, like, we'll try and figure it out. We'll try and figure it out. And it's still not changing anything. What is something else that you can do? Like, don't be afraid to reach out. Like Scarlett said, like we're both resources in the community, or if you feel like talking to a trusted individual like your pastors, or a trusted family member. Key word is trust, right? Trust, and you trust that person to talk to about what's going on in your family, but also you feel safe to talk to them about what's going on in your family. That is important. And also, I think like being able to enlist the help of a professional, because then a professional, they are bounded by law to be able to keep confidentiality for you, to hold this space of confidentiality for you, and be sort of like that objective party that can help you and your teenager and your family be able to navigate whatever it is that's going on. So there's nothing to be ashamed of, to be able to get the help of a third party like a counselor. Anything you want to add to that, Scarlett?
So on the event summary, there are 3 questions, and so I reposted it in the chat, and that you can ask. So the 3 questions that you can, when your team returns home, is, what's the reasons you ran away? Second question you can ask
Oh,
is
nice. Yep.
is there something I can do to help? Another question you can ask is, what is something I can do better to help? So we just wanted to kind of give that as an example of what you could share with, if you're case managers and you work with runaways and parents and stuff. Those are some examples you can do. So a comment in the chat was, this is good advice, but hard to implement for Islander families. I know the typical thought is they should know better and how they failed as a parent. Another comment is, yes, we exist as a communal PI community, best to support each other as we live as a village. So I think, to go back to the typical thought is they should know better and how they have failed as a parent. And it's the thing, there is no handbook for parenting. There just isn't. And so sometimes, a lot of times we feel like there's this general, like, you're a parent, you should know it all, and you just don't. And so being able to lean into that and actually being like, I thank God for my village who has helped raise my child, helps me raise my child.
Yeah.
And there are 2 women who I go to all the time about parenting advice, and thank God, because otherwise I don't know where I would be as a parent. Just for transparency, because the reality is I am basically, I don't know it all, and I don't want to know it all. And so, especially when it came to COVID, I was just like, I need help. Like, I can't do this. Like, especially when it came to teaching, I literally enlisted the help of my friend to be like, because she used to be a teacher, be like, can you teach my son this? And she's like, yep, I got it. So they would meet once a week. And so that's the thing. It's just like, as a parent, you have to utilize the resources that we have, because that's why they are there, so that you don't have to do it on your own. Because nobody in this life has designed to do everything on their own. It's just unrealistic. It just truly is unrealistic. And so just want to continue to encourage parents. It's like, we fail and we succeed, it is a matter of, like, to be okay with asking for help. And so I know, especially within our PI community, it is hard for us to ask for help. And that's why Sala and I are here to say, like, ask for help. That's why we are here, because, like, we all have experienced what it's like to literally suffer in silence before. And it's like, we don't want to continue to push that message forward, because it's not helpful for our community at all.
That's a really good like comment, Celie. Yeah, I think like it's hard to implement for any family that are not currently doing it. I think it's always difficult to do. Like I said, like I know it's for Pacific Islanders is usually like if that ever happens, they come back and they'll get beat up for real. Like you get like, are you serious? Like you should know better. But then again, how's that been working out for us? Right? How has that been working out for our families and for our teenagers that are suffering, that are going through what they're going through? And again, why they're choosing to do that versus opening up and talking to their parents about it. Awesome comment. Yep, coming together. So then, did you want to start off this slide, Scarlett?
Oh, Celie, did you want to add something before we go?
Oh, yeah.
No, yeah. I just wanted to add that. I mean, I think that's a part of how we're trying to change the narrative.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a saying in Samoan, right? Fiapalangi, or, you want to be a part of the colonizers, or you want to be white. But, that's why I work for public health. And that's why you guys are. And you guys are therapists. I mean, we're trying to change the narrative, right? Trying to change how folks see things. But no, I think it's really good advice. It's just, I have a hard time myself telling, like, cousin or a sibling, hey man, you should talk to your kids. Here's a feelings wheel, bro. Try to figure out where they're at in this thing.
Mhm.
But it's really good advice. It's just like, man, how do you make that practical? I mean, all the stuff that you guys
Mhm.
are presenting to us is practical, but I mean, the activation or actually doing it, that's a whole nother level. I
Yeah,
just want to
it's
throw that out
different.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think
No,
just
absolutely agree. Oh, sorry. Go
yeah.
ahead, Scarlett.
No, I definitely, we definitely agree, Celie. And so part of what I want to encourage you to sit in it, it's going to feel awkward. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's no way it's not going to feel awkward because these are things that we are introducing. And if you think about anything you introduce that's new is always awkward, but the more and more you
Mm-hmm.
practice it, the better and better you get at it. So of course, introducing of feelings will, especially to like some,
Yeah.
masculine, they're, it's going to feel awkward at first, but it's just like, I
Yeah.
would rather have them have the info than not,
Mm-hmm.
because like I said, I would say it's better to have it than not. And
Yeah.
so, because like I said, it's because all we're doing really is just an introduction to these things.
Yeah.
And if somebody takes onto it, then yes, we continue to do our job. That's why we continue to have these conversations. But we understand the implementation is hard, but the
Yeah.
implementation is hard because we don't want to feel awkward a lot of the times. And it's okay if you feel awkward. Like
Yes.
everybody has it from no one has not ever experienced awkwardness before and has come through it as well.
Mm-hmm. And also, if like everything, if you think about like everything that has to do with mental health is absolutely a different approach in our community. It
Mhm.
is not common. Anything like even just, going and talking to a mental health professional, it's not common. It's not an approach that everybody kind of like, it's like going to the doctor.
Mhm.
So even that's awkward, right? But we're slowly seeing people like this younger generation are a lot more open
Mhm.
to seeking mental health services, right?
Mhm.
So it's like it's just a different, we're introducing just a different way of doing things. And it does feel awkward, but it is absolutely possible. It's
Mhm.
possible to do. It's and I speak from my own experience and being able to parent my kids in this way because I could tell you stories of, I mean, I feel bad for my oldest son because like that's when I was like all Samoan parent. My youngest one, okay, like mama learned some things, some palangi things, and started implementing some things. So, but it took a lot for me and my husband to be able to change our parenting because we came from parenting and what we knew how our parents parented us, and y'all know how that was, and growing up in Samoan community. But I mean, we're still learning, but we are definitely not where we were years ago. It
Mhm.
has changed, like, so it's whether you're just giving them the feelings wheel now, but you've introduced something to
Mhm.
your nieces and nephews, right? And it's like them better than we do, so you can find a creative way to be able to make that more engaging for
Mhm.
them. Maybe it's not giving them the feelings wheel, but maybe it's like throwing them little nuggets that you learned from all of our classes, right?
Mhm.
So there's just, yes, I love the awkwardness in
Yep,
the conversation. We're here for
for
it.
sure. So, all right. So this last two slides coming together. Sala and I wanted to bring the conversation together to bring the teen and the parent together in regards to thinking about. So one of the questions, there's two questions we came up with, and so the first one was, a lot of times, we have to think about for the teens, what was your contribution to the problem? Because a lot of times teens, I can't say because the teens I've counseled, they always like to blame the parent. And it's just like, and I hear part of that, but I'm just like, well, what was your contribution to the problem? They're always like, what do you mean? I said, a problem just doesn't happen on its own. What is your part in this? So part of what we want to talk about this is, especially when you're coming together, if the team comes back, is what did you contribute? Like everybody taking accountability and responsibility for their
Mm-hmm.
for their own stuff, because I think a lot of times parents get the bad rap, be like, I left because of my parents. And so even when I think about this, when I asked the teen, what was their contribution to the problem, they say nothing. I said, well, You not saying anything is a contribution to the problem. They're like, oh, because like
Mhm.
they're, they just keep it all to themselves, and then they start going into, well, my parents don't understand me. Tell me what, and I'd be like, well, tell me what they don't understand. Then they'll say it. I'm like, did you explain that to them? They're like, no. I said, okay, so that's a contribution to the problem. So, anything you
Yeah.
want to add to that?
And the same question applies to the parents as well.
Mhm.
Parents, how, because like Scarlett said, we didn't get a booklet on how to parent, but there's a reason why the dynamic between you and your teenager is the way it is, right? So again, as a parent, like what can you take accountability of as the parent, right? How did you contribute to kind of like why your teen responded the way that they did? Like what is it from, sort of that interaction with your teenager that you can take accountability of? Because maybe you and your teen had a disagreement, but then you started, just kind of bashing on your teen, like, oh, you never do your chores because you're just like your father, you're lazy, you're that. Like, how did you contribute to the problem? Right? Like what is something that, you did in sort of like that interaction with your teen to where it maybe builds up and it's causing your teen to respond the way it is. So really truly we're looking at this as like, okay, we're coming together. How can both the parents and the teenager be able to take accountability for how things sort of played out the way it did?
Absolutely. So we are the big thing about what Sal and I work on with a lot of the families we work with, and what we always want to introduce is a holistic perspective. So not with just, so the second question we want to ask is, how and what are you going to contribute to the solution? Because a lot of times, like I said before, or a little bit earlier, it's like we always focus on the problem, but not really the solution. And so when I used to work with teens, I used to say, okay, what do you think you can do differently? Like, how do you think you can contribute to the solution? And they'd be like, oh, well, I probably can tell my parents, like, when something they say upsets me, instead of just holding it in. I'm like, cool. And I said, okay, is that something you want to introduce to your parents so that they are aware? Because that was the thing. I always wanted to make them aware, like, if your child comes to you with this, we talked about giving permission to come to them about if something about, and this is how we're trying to contribute to the solution. So, because that's the thing with teens, they always feel like sometimes they were like, the parents have to fix it. And I was like, no, you have to contribute as well. You have to learn to contribute. So that was the part that I always challenged them to do. So, Sala.
And the same goes for the parents as well. What can you do differently? Like, what can you do differently in this situation? Like, if you were I'm the parent, you're the kid, have it my way, it's my way or the highway, and that's just how it's been your approach with your kid, and that's how it's always been. And you see that your teen is running away constantly, and maybe it's because they're not responding to that parenting style, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they're like, okay, that parenting style, and oh gosh, that's a whole nother class. It's like your
Mm-hmm.
kids, all of your kids, you parent them differently because they're all individuals with their own personality. So
Yeah.
how you parent one is probably going to be different, more than likely going to be different with how you parent another, because they're just two, three, four different people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what can you do differently? Is there another way that you can change your approach and how you maybe, talk to this teenager, right? So same thing. And then, how are you going to contribute to the solution?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing,
Absolutely.
same thing.
So, with that being said, we're going to talk real quickly about how to start sharing your feelings healthily. So, the big thing is identify what makes you feel emotionally safe. So, that's like the tone, listening ear, encouraging words, softness, advice. And so, this is something we went over in Know Your Feelings, the Know Your Feelings presentation. So, if you want to catch that, go to King County's Public Health, go to the playlist, Inner Wellness Playlist. And that's this again, I go into further depth. Sal and I go into further depth in that presentation. The other part is identify, and this is for parents and teens. This is not just for one or the other. Identify who makes you feel emotionally safe. Because, and go to those people first, because sometimes we go to the people who we think should help, but they actually
Mm-hmm.
don't end up helping. The other thing is use a feelings wheel. One advice I always give to my clients, and then I'm glad I have them, whether they look up a feelings wheel online or they Google search it or they have the one I sent them, is to take a screenshot of the feelings wheel so that I can keep it on the phone, because we all always have our phone somewhere on us or near us. And so literally pulling up that feelings wheel. So like when people ask me, how are you doing? I said, you know what, I literally would say, let me look at my feelings wheel and I'll get back to you. And so again, the importance is saying the feeling and the reason for the feeling. Other part, journal your feelings, write them down, draw, paint, video blog, whatever you need to do to journal them out, because like I said, the more you get them out, like we said earlier, it helps relieve it and it helps reduce the intensity of them. And the other part is like, what Saul was talking about earlier is like self-care is like take a break. Sometimes you just truly, truly need to take a break, and it's okay to take a break. And so we just want to continue to empower and encourage you all that to utilize the tools that we will always continue to share with you all. Because like I said, the things that we are talking about are things that literally you can start utilizing as soon as this presentation is over. So in the chat, Celie posted the King County playlist. And so again, if you want to catch our presentations, please go to that playlist. So that being said, let's chat. That's it. And so if anybody has any comments, any questions, please share them, because that's what we are here for.
Yes.
Anything. If not, it's okay.
If
So I know
not,
this,
Celie, the floor is yours.
yeah, it's a heavy, I mean, that's the thing, this is a heavy topic. And so, because and that's the reason why Sal and I want to keep talking about these topics that are usually kept in private, and just bring them out on the forefront. And we will continue to push the envelope, because these things we cannot keep hiding in our communities, because it's not moving in the direction that's in a healthy way. So we will always be the conduits of pushing, because with the next couple ones we got coming up, fasten your seatbelts. I'm excited about it. So Celie, it's all you now.
No, I mean, as you guys mentioned, this is, I think the disciples told Jesus to tough teaching, who can accept it? But yeah, it's a lot to unpack. It's a lot to absorb. But always thankful for your expertise and you guys' guidance towards all BIPOC community, because I feel like this message is relevant for everyone, from the immigrant community, foreign born, Pacific Islanders. Yeah, I think we can practically take away some of these things because we didn't grow up that way. So obviously I'm kind of like Sala. I parent my kids a little different. I always get teased by my siblings. Why do you give your kids options? Just tell them what to do. Oh, because I just want them to be thought partners in what it is we're gonna, venture in next.
Thought partners. I love it.
I love it.
Out there co-creating with my children. No, yeah. So we are
They're
actually
gonna
going.
thank you for it, Celie. They're gonna
Yeah.
thank you for it.
Well,
Trust.
we're going through a divorce, so it's one of those things of we got to piece some things together. But I just want to let folks know that we are going to take a hiatus for spring break, but we will be back the first week of May, I think.
First week of May.
Yep, and then we'll have 3 sessions there. But great news is we might actually have a follow-up to this series. So we've got some approved funding to, continue to unpack this because, as Scarlett and Sala mentioned, this isn't going to solve itself overnight. And yeah, we just want to continue to have this conversation and make it more fruitful for our communities. But with that, I just want to thank you both, and thank you everyone who joined our Zoom and are sharing this out with community, because our last one actually got shared a bunch of times because we put it on Facebook Live and got some pretty cool stats on it. So yeah, with that, I don't know if you guys want to end with a final word before I stop the recording.
Just if you have any questions, just please shoot them like Celie, shoot them to Celie. Celie will get them to us, and we will definitely answer them. As far as Lucy, in regards, can we get the slides? If you, like I said, I did a summary of the slides on the event cheat sheet is what I have. So that's really, if you want the information, it'll be on there. So that's where it's literally verbatim. So the slides, because I didn't feel everybody wanted all the slides. So, but again, if you have any questions, please shoot them. We will answer them. Even if you come to the next presentation, you have questions about this or any of the previous ones, we will still answer them. So that's what we are here for.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Come to
Thank
the
you,
next one.
everyone.
Thanks all.
You are all welcome. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We really, really appreciate it.